Yoy!
I'm not gonna worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy!
We talking about Twitter.
Triple yoy!
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy!
Let's go Steelers!
Are we going to give Matt Canada praise?
You guys are funny sometimes.
We mock ourselves.
That's right. It's time for the show that exposes all your hot and toxic Steelers takes. It's what Jin's talking about. The conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation. I'm Kyle Kreis. Here with me is Greg Benevent.
Hello.
On the ones and twos, the Model Meatball, Rob Banks.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
It's going, and it's 10 days without a game. I'm ready for. It doesn't feel. It has kind of felt like a bye week.
It has felt like a bye week. It's been wonderfully relaxing.
Oh, coming up in the second half. What should we tease?
What do we got to tease today?
What about maybe the most overrated and underrated Steelers of all time?
Sure.
Do you think we can definitively put a close to this conversation?
100%. We can make the true answers today.
Some bad expectations. Halfway through the season, the expectations change. And
that could have been an alternate title for this entire podcast, Bad Expectations.
And I don't give a about your bad expectations. I should have done that song.
There's plenty of time.
Instead, maybe you have some of the best Canada memes on a opening drive touchdown.
Okay.
See who the memes came out for the first quarter offense.
I can already feel the chills in my chest.
Why don't we get to some of these hot and toxic takes? Let's start with. Let's go to Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter, because even though 5-3 team, it's just not good enough, and the national it's being a primetime game. It was plenty of national media jumping on board on this wagon. We've got at Adam Schefter. At 5-3, the Steelers are the 34th team since 1933 when rushing and receiving stats were first tracked. The invention of rulers. Since 1933 to be outgained in each of their first 8 games of a season. They're the only one of those who's had a winning record. Steelers are the only team this season to be outgained in every game. They've been outgained by 790 yards. Second worst to the Broncos. We don't deserve to be in the league this year.
I was going to say, it's a good thing the NFL doesn't have relegation, or we would have been relegated to, I don't know, the XFL after being outgained by the Titans by 14 yards.
Eight games and you can get relegated. Wouldn't that be a new twist on the NFL?
There's some Steeler fans on Twitter that would be perfectly fine with that.
Oh, there's plenty of fans who I relegated to I should relegate to Blue Sky or one of these other
or
networks.
I was going to say the Phantom Zone, but that's much nicer.
Oh, the Phantom Zone. Yeah. You're off to the Phantom Zone. How do I send you there? Oh, I don't know. There you go. You fans have been sent to the Phantom Zone. National media cannot digest the fact that the offense is worse than other 5-3 teams might be at this point.
Yes, it's weird, just to read this, and I'm thinking oh, okay, this is just the national media putting something out there to get a response, and then every now and then you'll read a national media figure, and I'm like, this person seems actually upset about this.
Let's, it's like when the national media makes lemons, I say let's turn it in
awesome
to
in the
lemonade.
fourth quarter.
No, that's not what I wanted to do.
It felt right.
Let's see. Here's a little recap of what some of the national media's been saying.
How in the world do we explain this? It makes no sense. It's a magic trick. It makes no sense. It's a magic trick. It makes no sense. It's a magic trick. How in the world do we explain this? They don't play the game well. How in the world do we explain this? There's no other way to explain it. In literally every game, They are worse at that than their opponent. It makes no sense. They're literally good at nothing other than winning the game. I don't see how it's sustainable. There's no other way to explain it. They don't play the game well. It makes no sense. How in the world do we explain this? You're not even counting the penalty yards.
56
You're
games.
not even counting the penalty yards.
56.
You're not even counting the penalty yards.
We're talking about 3.5 years.
It makes no sense. How in the world do we explain this? It's a magic trick.
We're talking about 3.5 years.
I blame Matt Canada.
56 games.
What's the standard?
I don't see how it's sustainable. How in the world do we explain
Where
this?
you haven't even had
It makes no
one
sense.
400-yard game.
What Steeler fan feels good today?
They don't play the game well.
I blame Matt Canada. What's the standard?
How in the world do we explain this?
56.
Pickett missed more passes than he hit.
In literally every game, they are worse at that than their opponent.
56 games.
It makes no sense. How in the world do we explain this?
They might be the worst team in the NFL and they're 5-3.
Worst team in the NFL
There are
at
some
5 and
great
3.
quotes in there. There's some amazing quotes in there.
You know what? I mean, we. I don't know. Maybe Steeler fans have just known this for 8 weeks now, but national media is losing their wig. Where was Maurice Jones-Drew when we needed him?
Well, I think he was still running over the Steelers as he did for much of his career. I will say, I mean, I find all of this, and perhaps I'm becoming more of a troll as I age. I find all of that response that much more satisfying when the Steelers win this way.
Oh yeah. It's like, stick it to them. They don't believe in us. That's the thing. Like, we, as Steeler fans, we should be rallying around this team. Like, they don't believe in us. We we have the 30th ranked offense. They don't believe in us. We've got haven't had a 400-yard game in 53 games.
I was gonna 53 years, it
56
seems. It's been since sometime in Bubby's years. But I think you kind of hit on it there. I think the problem with a lot of the fans that are the most unhappy about this is that, they've kind of gotten to the point where it's winning is great, but what's more important, or what's equally important, or perhaps also very important, is the opinion of these media figures, which is so unimportant.
Or just to be right on social media.
Yes,
that too. Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
This is what where are all these hot take artists with this kind of stat? At My Sports Update, Ari Miroff. The Steelers are outscoring opponents 42-11 in the fourth quarter in their 5 wins this season. They put it all together in the fourth and squeak out wins. Isn't that as much of the narrative as no offense in 3 quarters?
Yeah, but I think so. But I mean, but that doesn't, you can't go on TV and scream about how is this happening, which again is like a line that, a general shouts in a zombie movie, not an analyst in an NFL show.
How can we explain this?
Right.
Well, that's your job. That's your
Right.
job, ESPN.
That's literally what you're there to do. You have no other purpose other than to explain this. If you cannot, perhaps that tells you something.
And here's how you explain it. The Steelers are outscoring opponents 42-11 in the fourth quarter.
Right,
That's
right. And also, too, again, it's 14 yards they were outgained by in the Titan game. Again, and this is a game where the Titans had no offense whatsoever in the second half. I mean, that kid had, 40 yards passing. The Titans were an absolute disaster in the second half, and yet, they outgained them by 14 yards, which is one pass, one play. So it's that big number with the close to the Broncos. That's all the Niners and the Texans games.
You're exactly right.
If Coach says it, I believe it. All right. Well, this was the week that we're throwing Kenny under the bus.
Oh my God! They killed Kenny! You bastards!
No grooming this week.
I was going to say, the grooming got left away there.
Let's get to the Kenny hate tweets at Scarpizio Scarps. Among quarterbacks that have thrown at least 600 passes in this league, Pickett ranks last in TD passes, 13, tied for third lowest yards per completion, 10.1, fourth worst on target, 71.7. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, I know.
The concerns are legitimate. Or should we be having legitimate concerns about Kenny at 5 and 3?
I'm so old. I heard this tweet in the voice of the dean from Animal House. Just what he's shouting about the QPA. I mean, the concerns are legitimate. Sure. Again, we're going, what are my concerns? That Kenny might not win multiple Super Bowls? I mean, yeah, okay, my concerns are kind of legitimate there. But the idea that, he's the best person to lead this team to victory right now, that it's not worth trying to go out out and draft someone else after the season, or God forbid, try to sign somebody. I'm concerned that Kenny's not going to be all pro, but I'm not concerned as that like this is going to lead to some like Steeler dark age.
No.
It's good to see the big boy.
Yeah, well, whatever that meant. I don't know. How about, let's put it in these terms, at the Pony Express, Andrew Filipponi. There are 11 NFL starting quarterbacks from the past 3 drafts. How many are better than Kenny Pickett? Are you ready?
Sure,
We'll put
let's
you
go.
on the Bryce Young.
No. I mean, maybe he has more talent, but he's been a mess so far.
C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud's looked very good, and in the interest of being kind to this thing, I'll say Stroud so far, yes. But again, that's what is it? I think 6 or 7 games at this point. So I'll give them,
Okay.
Stroud has looked better.
1-1. Will Levis.
Absolutely not.
No?
I know people were so hyped after that Tennessee game and the Falcons game, but the Steelers secondary, I think Hank Poteet was back there. I mean, guys were like college open. I'm not on the Will Levis thing yet. I'm going to have to see more than 2 or 3 games of him throwing to dudes that are open by 5 yards.
All right, he had some gumption, though.
He did have gumption. I'm not saying, and I think Will Levis could be fine, but the idea that how many are better than Kenny Pickett, absolutely not. You know why? Because Will Levis sucked in the 4th quarter. He was terrible. On that last drive, he was okay when he hit them wide open dudes after that fake penalty, but he was terrible in the 4th quarter.
All right, so that's one for Kenny. Anthony Richardson.
Is he ever on the field? I mean, he's got some talent, but he has had some real injury issues so far.
So that's one for Kenny. We got 3-1. Kenny's better than Trevor Lawrence.
Lawrence is better. Lawrence is a number 1 overall pick, one of the best prospects at quarterback prospects in a decade. Yes, Lawrence is better.
Not the hair, though. The hair is not better.
Oh, the hair is pretty. No, the hair's close. I mean, that might be the closest stat they have is the hair.
3-2, Kenny. Justin Fields.
Man, this one's tough. I kind of got to say no because, like, Kenny's better in the 4th quarter, but, like, I'm not sure Fields is good in any quarter. But again, this is one where I feel like to definitively say Kenny's that much better is to not be fair to Fields because, man, he's got nobody over there. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Fields is probably more talented. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to give a guy that's been on a 10-game losing streak and say he's better than Kenny. So
He's
I guess
not a winner.
Yeah. So I guess I have to go Kenny on that one.
All
too.
right, 4-2, Kenny. Mac Jones.
No, Jones is a mess. If Kenny was with the Patriots, they'd have a better record than they do now.
5-2, Kenny. Sam Howell.
I haven't seen enough of them. Are they doing any good? I know nothing about Howell.
He puts up enough numbers. You know?
Okay.
He has the 2nd most passing yards this season.
Okay, so I'll say he's better. Sure.
Okay, all right. So that's a knock on Colbert, isn't it?
Yeah. They didn't take this guy in the 1st round.
Brock Purdy.
I mean, it's just because Purdy went to the title game and won the game here. I have to say Purdy's better. So yeah, we'll give him that one. Although he's a mess in the 4th quarter too.
And Cuckoo, Mrs. Robinson, Zach Wilson.
Oh God, no! I mean, it's because whatever else you could say about Kenny is an actual leader, like an actual leadership person, whereas Zach Wilson's kind of the opposite of that.
So we got 6-4. Kenny wins. So it's we're in a good position. That's the best position we could be.
But also a lot of these guys are like, have played fewer games than Kenny, and a lot of them we don't know if they're going to be able to hold up for a whole season. I mean, maybe Anthony Richardson has talent, but that dude gets hurt pretty fair amount.
All right. So, well, we can't knock the pick yet, right? We can't knock the pick over in hindsight.
Well, I'd have to see a lot more of these guys win some games before I started knocking the pick too much.
Let's keep the takes going. At Ross_McCorkle, Ross McCorkle. If you could only pick 2 of these 3 traits, high passing yardage output, good ball security, clutch in the 4th quarter, which 2 do you choose and why?
I mean, this is a very good question, even though it's quite a pointed one. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously the last 2. It's good ball security and clutch because you can have a lot of we've seen Steeler teams and Steeler opponents have a lot of passing yardage and lose by quite a bit.
So the point here is, why are we crying about yardage, right? It's about the clutch factor.
I personally think that the main reason that people are so down on Kenny this week is that they saw Levis, I still have no idea how to say it, with the big arm in the Thursday game, even despite the fact he was so bad in the second half. And 2, C.J. Stroud had a great game. one of the all-time greatest games a rookie has ever had this past Sunday. So I think those two things very much triggered the latest "Come Kill Kenny" chorus we're seeing.
A little QB envy there among the fan base. Well, how about some outrage at Jay Bailey NFL, Jarrett Bailey? If I'm the Steelers defense, this comes after the Tomlin press conference.
I understand. I know. Yes.
If I'm the Steelers defense, I'm pissed. Your head coach basically just said, who cares that the offense is a burning bag of ish? Have you seen what PFF graded Kenny in the fourth quarter? How rad. This is a tough way to spin Tomlin's take on Kenny.
I mean, it's so tough as to feel genuinely disingenuous. I mean, this is it's like you're taking this well-crafted thing and saying it's for children. I mean, this is silly. But I imagine being a professional who's paid a lot of money to play this game and even having this thought cross your mind.
Is there any validity to? It's like, oh, Tomlin's giving Kenny a pass. We all know that he's not performing in the first half, and Tomlin's giving him a pass. Is it a pass, or does Tomlin have a point? It's who cares what he does in three quarters?
Well, I'm sure that's not the way they're addressing it when we don't see it. I'm sure it's not like they're sitting there saying, the first three quarters don't matter. Here's the game plan in the fourth. And two, I think the other way to look at this is that, like, here's a criticism of one of the most prominent players on our team, and here's our coach publicly standing up for him, so thus he may do that for us as well.
Yeah, that's maybe more important. This is all about not throwing your QB under the bus in a situation when it's...
Or any member of your team.
Yeah. Let's listen exactly what he said. We'll get the full context here.
Mm-hmm. He's awesome in the fourth quarter, man. He rises up in those moments. He wants to be the reason why we're successful. He prepares his tail off. In some instances where people run from challenges, he runs two challenges. And so that's why his performance is so good in the fourth. Those other quarters we'll work on. I mean, it's...
it takes a lot to misinterpret that. Like, you have to work really hard to misinterpret that. You interpreted the first three quarters of the message, and then you missed the fourth quarter.
Well, on one hand, I do like the message. Like, we're sticking with this guy, but all the things that we like about him are kind of intangibles. It's not, the
stats are a mess. I mean, but again, that's part of why I'm enjoying this as much as I am. Again, I worry I become too much of a troll as I age, but I mean, I just how verklempt the national media and a lot of the local media has made this season all the more enjoyable to get to 5-3.
How about some aftermath of the Tomlin presser at Ledyard NFL Draft, John Ledyard. Get yourself ready for 4 to 5 years of Pickett. Tomlin is digging in, and he's probably the least likely coach in the NFL to change his mind, even before he really digs in. Is this Kenny rides out this contract? Is that what we're seeing from Tomlin right now?
I mean, that was always the likeliest thing. I mean, I do think if Kenny doesn't improve by the end of, like, not just this season, but next season, then they'd seriously explore a competition for the year after that. But, which I guess would be season 4. So this guy's probably right. I mean, I don't know. I like Ledyard. He's a smart guy if you read his account. But every now and then with Pickett, he'll say something like, I hope they move on from him after this year. I'm like, guys, they're already 5-3. You're a smart man. You don't need to throw that kind of chum in the waters.
They're not moving on from him, at least until the end of next year.
That's what I always thought. They are going to draft a quarterback this year, but the idea is to get a cheaper long-term backup as opposed to paying Mitch $8 million a year to come in late in the game and just throw to Pickens no matter how covered he is.
Yeah, won't we be able to get one of these other guys by then? Won't we be able to get a... Sam Howell by then?
Well, what I think they'll find, isn't that what Kirk Cousins was for RG3? Like, he was going to be the long-term backup, and they ended up being Kirk Cousins. I could be wrong about that, but there's some of those guys that end up being quarterbacks that were the backups for some other guy.
What's the final word on Kenny? How about at Chris Muller, PGH, Chris Muller? Feel better or worse about Pickett after last week's game? Worse, 60%, better, 40%.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that binary, or is it just, yeah, it's the same? This is the same, Kenny.
Well, I mean, I think it's the same, but again, this is also right after the game where you had just, these epic poems about the greatness of Will Levis despite doing nothing in the second half. Did I mention that? He did nothing in the second half. And hearing how he was the greatest quarterback, just this, unbelievable show of talent. But I think that's it. I think that was sort of where a lot of this is coming from. But and because this is even before C.J. Stroud throws for 2,000 yards on Sunday.
Yeah, and I sat him on my fantasy bench. Great. Ooh. Yeah.
Who were they playing? Who were the Texans playing?
I don't know. Who wasn't even, wasn't my fantasy team. Why don't we head to the second half? I know it might be a little early. We still got to talk Canada memes.
Oh, okay.
And maybe can we even answer this? The all-time most overrated and underrated Steelers of all time.
Talk about something that can be easily quantified.
Well, Twitter got down to the bottom of it, and it's weird how a lot of the same people on the overrated side were also on the underrated. Fascinating. All right, let's take a break, and we'll see you in a minute. Enjoy these messages.
Did you bring the peanuts, pretzels, popcorn? Did you bring the burgers? Where's the beer? Did you bring the ketchup, mustard, pickles? Did you bring the pumper?
Yeah, it's here.
Did you bring the Icy Light Iron City pumper?
Can't forget the pumper.
One of each.
Did you bring the ice to chill the pumper?
Yeah. When you want a cold one, just reach. Have a picnic, have a party, call the people, tap the pumper, have a pumper party. Did you bring the pumper? Did you bring the pumper? Did you bring the pumper? Yeah.
Welcome back. It's the second half. We're playing undefeated ball. Are we? I don't know. What does that even mean? What does anything I say
We scored
mean?
Early, and now we're just trying to ride it out.
Scored on the first drive, and now we're going to wait until the last 4 minutes of the game. And
yes, exactly. Now we're kind of misfiring on some high throws.
We promised some Canada memes, but first, let's talk a couple Tomlin takes. Can't keep my coach out your mouth. How about, where is it? Oh, let's go back to at Chris Muller, PGH. Chris Muller. Mike Tomlin bears significant responsibility for creating the material conditions that the national media are praising him for, overcoming through 8 games. So when they're not being perplexed about why we're being outgained offensively in every game, they are giving Tomlin the praise. Tony Gonzalez before the Thursday night game was saying that he might be the greatest coach of all time.
I remember hearing that.
There's
been other. Oh, bless you. There's been some other members of the media that said similar things. This is Tomlin's finest coaching job.
Coach of the year, yeah.
That Barnwell guy, who is not, for the most part, a big Pittsburgh fan. If you remember, I think he was the guy that tried to make the leap from ESPN Plus to being the GM of the Jaguars. I don't know if you remember that. He wrote up a resume and this whole thing about how they should hire him. This was a while back, but yeah.
I guess the question is, can we credit Tomlin for being coach of the year material? And then say, but you put together this roster that got you here.
I mean, now we're back to, as hard as it is to determine fault when a team loses a football game, now we're back to exactly how much control does Tomlin have over shaping this roster. And this roster has some issues. It's by no means the most complete team in the league. So if Mueller here is saying that, Tomlin, the GM, is being outshone by Tomlin, the coach, I can buy that. I think Tomlin, but again, how much of whatever mistakes they've made in roster construction are Tomlin and not Colbert and Kahn? It's when there's a lot of people, I mean, that whole failure is an orphan. Well, not necessarily.
That is a reasonable expectation.
Okay, well, it's not for lack of effort. Whatever you say, you can't say Tomlin put this team together, but it's not like they ignored, it's not like there's any glaring omissions. They've tried to address every.
That was what we talked about all offseason. They have thrown a lot of dudes at each problem. I don't know if they were the right dudes, but they've put. It's not like there was something this is a huge mistake, and we're leaving it that way. I mean, there was a guy from the Colts practice squad in there during the last drive to close out a football game on Thursday night. There's been some other things happening here.
Yeah. All right. Well, one more thing on Tomlin. At Ben B. Baldwin, Computer Cowboy. Death taxes, Eagles, Lions not being scared to go for it. All right, so we've got a graph here of teams going for it on 4th down in 2023.
Okay.
The bottom axis is when it's a toss-up situation to go for it on 4th. You know?
Okay.
It's like, could be toss-up, and then you see on the right the teams that still go for it.
Okay.
And the teams on the left that do not go for it. And the
Gotcha.
Steelers are on the very left of the teams in toss-up situations on 4th to not go for it.
Okay, I think personally my confidence about going for it would be directly proportional to how much I believed in my offensive line. So I am fine with the offensive line living in fears in this case, the fears of these guys not doing the job. This could also increase as the year goes on too. But I did not know this stat, but looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, we're not going for it in these quote-unquote toss-up situations. What is a toss-up situation?
Well, that's just what I was about to ask you. I mean, if it's 4th and 1 at like at their 45, like that's one thing versus like, I don't know, 4th and 2 at our 40, or 4th and half a yard at our 40. I'd have to have kind of better understanding of a toss-up thing. But again, I'm kind of full of fear as long as my offensive line is not a very congealed unit.
We saw it's everyone's just like, well, you do the tush push and it's automatic. But Kenny, the spot, I guess, on Kenny's QB sneak.
Yes.
Well, it was proof that the tush push isn't a guaranteed
Well,
thing.
also, no one was pushing his tush. He ran over that side. And also, I mean, I thought the Jalen Warren 4th down run, or maybe it was 3rd down, I don't remember, but he bounces it to the outside and he gets several yards. There was a Titans dude who could have had him. Like, I don't know how Warren got around the guy, but he did. It was an incredible burst of speed. But, I mean, that guy was in the backfield. So, so I'm fine with being full of fear until things fully become something else.
Okay, enough Tomlin. We promised hot Canada memes. It's time for the Matt Canada takes.
I'm coming out of the booth.
That's right. He's out the booth, on the field, and that seems to have made all the difference.
I mean, I was goofing up before, but it kind of does seem to have been helpful. Like, it seems to have done something.
What kind of energy does Matt Canada on the field have? Is it at Holer Kyle, Pittsburgh Steelers when Matt Canada is down on the field and it's Thanos putting the gem into the Infinity Gauntlet, making him all powerful? Is that the Canada on the field?
I mean, the only thing that might not work for me is that I'm not the biggest Marvel guy. You're probably more qualified to me. Thanos was pretty tough before he put the Infinity Gauntlet on, right? I mean, he was winning a lot of that movie. Then he became invincible. But up until then, he was probably having a better season than Matt Canada in the booth.
You're right. Canada's more like Captain America, the scrawny guy before the serum.
Okay.
All right.
I'm so glad I got a Marvel analogy right.
All right, we're going to cross out the Thanos meme. What about at David Welsh Jr.? David Welsh, that was a Steelers drive, right? That was actually pretty great. And it's Sam Neill, Jurassic Park, shocked at seeing Jurassic dinosaurs on the Acrisure field.
This one I'm fine with. It is Sam Neill seeing something that he believed had been dead for a long time looking healthy. I am 100% on board with this meme.
How about for the ladies? At Duck Options, Canada'sburg, and it's the Steelers just scored an opening touchdown drive, and the guy's getting goosebumps.
Okay, it's I feel dirtier just looking at this, but all right, yeah, no, I mean it's I don't know if goosebumps is a thing. It's just like shock or stunness, but yeah, this is it's certainly arousing, I guess. We're gonna give this credit too. I like Sam Neill better just because I don't want to think about these people on Twitter being aroused, but yeah.
I'll give is this my favorite? I'm not certain. At my V Trophy, Felix DeCat. That's it, Matt Canada. No booth for you. And it's the soup Nazi.
It's the soup Nazi. Who's like more than 20 years old at this point.
Look at how young he looks back then.
I know. He looks really, I mean, the soup Nazi looks great. He really, really does. So the idea, I mean, the only thing that breaks down for this to me is that Matt Canada is someone buying soup and asking this man to go to the booth. He's
asking for the chicken booth in rice. And
okay. See, this is why I'm not great with memes. I'm trying to figure out all the characters in the story.
He's trying to cook and no booth. Like, where's Let Matt Canada Cook sound? Okay, there it is.
Let Matt Canada cook.
No booth for you. How about, let's get serious. At Steelers win 109, Minkaberg Steelers. I don't think anyone is realizing how hilarious it is that Canada became a good coordinator just by coming out of the field onto the booth. It is perplexing to me. A move like this shouldn't really make, they're professionals. It really shouldn't make that much of a difference, should it?
I mean, and I'm not sure it did. I mean, the Titans are, their defense is by no means bad, but it's not as good as a lot of the defenses they've seen recently. Even Jacksonville's defense is great against the run, and, the Titans' defense isn't nearly as good as the Browns or the Ravens, other teams they've played at home. So, I mean, maybe it's not entirely that, but, smarter people than me that I've listened to throughout the week were like, maybe it's easier for Kenny to go over and be like, hey, I saw this and this and this, versus like, collecting his thoughts, picking up the phone, calling Canada and saying, I saw this and this and this, and Canada saying, I saw this, thank you, and then hanging up and going out for the next drive.
Am I overthinking it and saying it's also a way to not make Canada continue to be a distraction? We're not getting the cutaway to the booth from the TV crews. We're not getting which causes then an overreaction on social media and then on national media. When Canada didn't cheer, that was on Pat McAfee. That
was very bizarre. He certainly was cheering the other night. He was fired up.
Now that's not. Now there's no cutaway camera. Now there's no. We've eliminated all of that. But that's Tomlin isn't usually thinking outside of the game itself.
No, and what I think also makes a lot of sense. I think it was Alan Saunders that said it. This really does not reflect well on Mike Sullivan, the quarterback's coach, since that was sort of his job to be the guy talking to them on the sidelines, and now Canada's the guy doing that. So that's sort of maybe where it's like, okay, we're changing something to make it more successful. Oh, this part is working better now that you're not doing your job the same way.
Maybe then if we found the Achilles heel, maybe that's it. Maybe it's Sully.
It could be it's again, failure is turns out has a lot of fathers as opposed to one. But
it's not like that they're buddy. They're not like creating a hug circle with Canada on the sidelines. Ben said, I've been on his page. He's like, you don't want to talk to the coordinator first thing off the sidelines. He'd rather talk to his other quarterbacks.
Right, the guy you just saw. Yeah, which is Ben would especially. We look at the success of Dobbs. Yeah, Ben would do that almost exclusively. Yeah.
I wish I almost pulled the clip, but it was when he had Hodge on his show. This was back during the Jags game, and he was saying that. He was talking about coordinators and how you don't always talk to your coordinator, and Hodge was like, yeah, I bet you didn't talk to some of yours, and I was like, he's not talking about BA, he's not talking about Fichtner, it's got to be Todd Haley.
It's got to be Haley. Well, to a lesser extent, yeah, some of the guys before, but yes, it's Hodge jumping in there with that as a punchline is really something.
Are we going to give Matt Canada praise?
It's don't go negative, fans.
The sheer amount of edge in Ben's voice as he says that. He's clearly so upset.
And it's not time, it's not time to keep the Canada fire chants going, because as B. Pryor says, at B. Pryor, Brooke Pryor, I talked to fan psychologists, former Steelers, and Todd Haley to understand fan behavior toward Matt Canada. Haley knows what Canada's going through and told me about meeting an angry fan at a Pirates game. I don't know Matt at all, but I root for him every single week. So he knows that this has an effect, even though we don't hear Matt Canada play the victim ever. I don't think we ever hear him play the victim. I don't know if this is Todd Haley kind of playing the victim himself, talking about meeting an angry fan at a Pirates game.
Well, a couple things. One, you buried the lead here. This woman's talking to psychologists. That's who you have to talk to about this Matt Canada stuff. That's great. She talked to fans and Haley, but psychologists are the people that can tell you what's actually going on. Two, if you're sitting there with Todd Haley at a Bucco game, why on earth are you bringing up Matt Canada? That just seems like it'd be so much fun to sit there and drink and talk to Todd Haley at this terrible baseball game. Like that's, why are you angry at a Pirates game at Todd Haley? Like, what went wrong there? Like,
before they were chanting Fire Canada, they were one-on-one.
Oh, yeah, they were lining up at Tequila Cowboy to yell at Haley there, yeah. I'll take you outside if you want to talk about this screen game, yeah.
I'm coming out of the booth!
Well, hey,
That's
Yeah.
Adam Sandler, right?
Yeah,
What is that from?
Toll Booth Willie.
Oh, okay. I'm trying
From
to
his
place it.
that's from his first album.
Okay. I'm like, is that in The Waterboy? What? Okay.
All right, we can't just talk Canada and Kenny. There's other offense also. How about at Mic'd Up Sports 1, Mike Nicastro? I've got news for yins. Calvin Austin III ain't the guy you thought he could be. He's a gadget, nothing more. Digest that. Steelers need another true playmaker badly. I mean, he was a fourth rounder. You know,
Right.
he was as far as draft capital, no different than a Buddy Johnson,
Yes.
really. But it does seem that the expectation should be downward arrow for Calvin Austin.
Well, a few things. One, the Steelers do need another true playmaker badly. Yes, like Pat Freiermuth as soon as he gets better. Two, this is a different conversation if Kenny throws a better pass or Austin's able to fight for it that one, and I want to say the second quarter of the game. And three, we're now through several generations of this, and it's always disappointing to me. Whenever the Steelers have a guy that's like somewhere around my size, he's always disappointing. This is Chris Rainey. This is this guy.
Dree
Archer. All guys that are like short and like somewhere around, short for a football player, and like in some cases like Chris Rainey, short for a human being like me. And but yeah, and whenever they're my size, it never works out.
I'm not willing to say it's definitely not a workout.
No,
yet
and he's
Calvin
also
Austin.
better than the guys I just mentioned. He's better than Chris Rainey. He's far better than Dree Archer and a lot less draft capital. And I do think that, you know, there's got to be a different play for him other than just throw it as deep as you can and hope Kenny gets the ball there.
It's the same strategy as when it was Sammy Coates or when it was other
a
fourth
bigger
rounders.
guy. Yeah.
Akers.
Martavis.
Yeah, he was a fourth rounder,
He was
right?
a fourth rounder. I mean, that was I forget why though. Like he barely played or didn't have some catches or there was an injury. There was some reason that someone so freakishly gifted as Martavis.
Rookie year was still the Young Money era though. Didn't you still have? He couldn't make that roster his rookie year.
No, I just couldn't remember why. Well, that's still the fourth. Someone that amazing.
All right, one last thing on offense. At Brian Batko, Steelers right tackle Chuks Okafor said he was benched because of acting out at the end of last week's game in a way he shouldn't have as a 6-year vet.
That's the Jags game, not the
Jags
Titans
game. Yeah, he isn't sure if he'll be back in the starting lineup next week. I think we know now
definitively he's
not going to be. And originally Tomlin said, I just wanted to create a spark out there. But then on Tuesday, he admitted that, there was something substantial, I believe he was.
Yes, something substantial he said at the end of that game. I had assumed it was to the Jags. Maybe it wasn't. But I think the other part of that, too, is that's the best the offensive line has looked in a long time, that game against the Titans, particularly with Broderick Jones at right tackle.
Could you think it could be... Is it lip service? Maybe Chuks, could he have really done something so bad to get benched, or is this just an excuse to finally get Broderick Jones on the field?
Well, I think that does not have to be exclusive. Those two things can go hand in hand. Because eventually Jones was going to get his way back to the field one way or the other, and Chuks was always probably going to be a cap casualty because of how much they like Dan Moore. So I think these two things, Tomlin might have seen something advantageous in them.
How bad of something, if he was talking squawk on another teammate, we've seen that before, DJ and Mitch, and and the comment was, well, if it didn't happen, maybe it should have. So I don't think it was necessarily a player-on-player comment. Right. If he was talking about the opponent in a bad, I mean, we saw DJ and Akilla Witherspoon mix it up, and
yes.
So I'm just wondering, wow, what could it have been? I guess the speculation is not it's not fair to regulate and speculate.
I guess the other part of it that makes the speculation difficult, and you just kind of touched on it yourself, is that all those other stories, there was someone else saying something. There was, we knew something, at least from the perspective of another party, whether it was DJ or Mitch or some reporter or something. Here, there's no one else to be like, oh, Chuks said this to me or said it about this. All we have is Tomlin and Chuks, and the two of them have not said anything.
Yeah, where are the insiders that can figure out what the heck happened? I'm sure
they're as confused by this as the national media are by the Steelers record.
Well, I want to know what Chuks said because it can't be.
See, my mind immediately went to something about the Jags, just because again how weird they were about the terrible towel in that game. But maybe that's not what it was at all.
We can't speculate and recollect.
Well,
there's someone that knows something about saying something about your teammates. There's the pro.
Let's check back in on our expectations. We're at the halfway point, as good as middle as it could be.
In an odd season, now they all have an odd number of games. Yes,
we need a name for the week 9 that's directly in the middle, right? It's like the
median
hump,
week.
Hump game.
There you go.
Medium week.
I don't know. Yours is a little more easier sell.
All right. Let's go to @Blitz_Berg Blitzberg. If you're content with the Steelers going 9-8, then I guess you wouldn't have any issue with their style of football right now.
It's an amazing fan base where a winning record is a grievous insult.
Yeah. Oh, you're content going 9-8 this season? Well,
look at this. If you were a real fan, you'd want them to be much worse.
Yeah, well, the real fan, the fans that keep it real out there want them to be 6-10. That's what they deserve to be. They don't deserve to be. I'm content with going 9-8 as long as it's playoffs.
Well, I mean, I just want to see the team have some improvement. I've certainly seen that in some areas. I'd like to see it in a lot more. I'm certainly 1 year to the next. They're a lot better at the first half of this past season than they were in the last season. So let's see more improvement in the second half of this season.
That's true. This first half has been an improvement. You can't. If we're going to compare it like that, then you would think that this would be all rosy and flowers.
Right, but instead they're 9-8, like some loser, even though that's literally not what that is.
What's the difference between 9-8 and 12-2 if they're both, or 12-5 if they're both?
It's hard with the math anymore.
They're both wild. If they both could be wild card, either or.
Right. Well, presumably, yeah, you'd get the easier draw in the if you were the 12-5. But is there such a thing in this AFC? The superior conference where there's many good teams.
Yeah, what if you're the 7th seed going into Miami compared to being the 5 seed going into Baltimore or something?
Right, right, exactly, Baltimore or Jacksonville, yeah.
So I don't know what's the difference? I don't know.
I mean, it's obviously you want to see them improve and do better, and they certainly could improve and do better, and you certainly hope they do. But this idea that if you're fine with them having a winning record like some kind of dweeb, then you'd be fine with this.
Yeah, dweeb. Mm-hmm. Let's one more thing on expectations. No, maybe two more. How about @Poll Steelers poll?
Oh God,
Yinzers, how confident are you that the Steelers make it to the playoffs? Very confident, 11%. Confident, 35%. Not confident, 48%. No chance in hell, 6%. So
this is way higher and more confident than I thought it would be.
It's like
I got to be honest,
45-55 between no playoffs, yes playoffs.
Yes, which is again much higher than I would think somebody is in here in this totally unlicensed and having nothing to do with anything Steelers poll. You would assume this was entirely people saying the team was not going to make the playoffs whatsoever. So I am heartened by the people who waded into this depth of Steelers internet.
I voted very confident.
There you go. I see that.
Yeah.
Even I could see that without my glasses. Yeah.
And if the season ended today, we would be in the playoffs. So
I'm always glad when Carbali starts out in like week 3.
So fans' expectations are that we're going to have a worse second half than the first half. If we go 500 at this point out, then what is it, 9-8?
Yeah. Because there's. The 17. What little math I can do is totally fried.
So it's either 9-8 or 10-7. You go 500 out.
Go 500,
and that would be worse than our first half. So.
Yeah, and certainly worse than the second half they had last year.
True. Okay, one more thing on how about this weekend's expectations Carney Media, Trey Carney. The Steelers have to dominate the Packers for fans to feel truly confident in this team moving forward. They need to figure out how to actually beat down a bad team. Yes, the Packers defense is actually good, but I will not be surprised if the Steelers D sets up Theo in great field position 2 or 3 times. Is this a must dominate? It can't just win. We must dominate the Packers.
I meant to look at the stats to see where the must dominate games are on this schedule. I mean, this is... For them to get to that 500 or better record that we talked about in the second half, this is one of the games you would think they would have to win to make that more likely. That being said, I was listening to a little bit of pregame on the way over here, and the Packers, I know nothing about the Packers, other than I know they've struggled a bit. The defense does sound better than I had been led to believe, so that could make me think this might be not unlike the Titans game.
We don't worry about the Joneses.
I'm not worried about whatever. It's just, win and go in. Win and go in? I don't think that's...
I mean, that's Yeah, win and move on is once you get there. So win and go in, I think, is probably at
undefeated in the throwbacks.
Well, these are the block numbers.
Oh, block numbers.
Which
Sorry.
are technically a throwback, and I
Okay.
guess they should wear them. People said they should wear them all the time, and I'd be fine with that. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other.
Haven't lost to Green Bay at home since Bradshaw's rookie year.
I did watch the 2 minutes somebody posted of highlights from that game, and it is wild, just the sheer amount of sideburns and that, like, the car in the end zone and all that stuff.
Yeah, why are they parking in the end zone in Three Rivers? Okay, well, if thinking of teams, a dominating game, I think of Cleveland against the Steelers, and we won that. I think we've been out-dominated in a lot of these. I don't want a dominating win. I'd rather just win.
Yeah, I mean, and also a dominating win, because, I mean, I don't know. This team gets a dominant win, and, like, a lot of people are going to get way out of control the other way. I mean, it's like, it just find. I think it's going to be tough, just because I think this offense is always going to find it a little tough against a good defense up until they really get it together. Oh, here we go.
All right, let's get the band on the field here. Okay. Some odds and ends, and we promised at Jared W. Kane, Jared Kane. Who was the most overrated Pittsburgh Steeler of all time? Who is the most underrated Pittsburgh Steeler of all time? Do you want to wade into that before we get into what the comment section had to say?
I mean, not really, because I don't have a good definition of overrated other than that, like, how their draft position was. Like, that's a genuine overrated. I mean, I see Devin Bush is on this list. I mean, technically that's correct. Was Chase Claypool overrated? Sure, after the first half of his rookie season when he looked amazing. He had, 8 touchdowns in his first 12 games or something during the lockdown games. So it's hard for me to make an overrated under other than we hold them in too high esteem for what they actually did. But the game was also different then. So anyway, I have no good answer to any of this.
Well, just like Steeler Nation, who also has no good answer. A lot of dumb. Because a lot of the names that were on the overrated list were also on the underrated. So you had so AB overrated and underrated. I got Big Ben overrated, underrated. I've got Ike Taylor overrated, underrated.
That was a 4th round pick. I mean, the one knock you can have against him is he dropped interceptions. I don't know how you can overrate Ike. Like
Ryan Clark on both overrated or underrated lists. Here are maybe, let's see. Here, are there any overrated? Like, see, Pouncey made the overrated list. Now, Pouncey is going to be, possibly a Hall of Famer.
Right, despite having never won a Super Bowl and not even playing in one. He was hurt in the Jets' title game. I mean, Pouncey, I mean, I guess if you want to overrate it as, like, the best Steelers center to not win a Super Bowl, which he is, I don't know how you would say Pouncey's overrated. I guess that's maybe you think there were other better centers of his era. Sounds like you're spending a lot of time thinking about how people felt about centers a few years ago. If you think Pouncey's overrated.
How about underrated? Now we're talking all-time Steelers. Here are some of the names: Jaylen Warren. Would you?
It's a year and a half. I mean, it's.
Ryan Shazier.
I mean, it's easy to say Shazier's underrated because we didn't see nearly enough of his career. I mean, it's entirely possible he would have gone on to get even better than he was. So yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense.
AB, we mentioned Casey Hampton, underrated.
I don't know. Casey was held in pretty high regard throughout much of his career.
Ryan Clark, we said. Heath Miller, would you say he's underrated?
I mean, in a different era, Heath probably puts up even bigger numbers than he did, but the Steelers, even at his time, valued blocking so much that there wasn't going to be as many opportunities as there were for other great tight ends who were probably better, like Gonzalez and Gronk, et cetera, et cetera.
What do we got here? Mewelde Moore? I don't even know if he would be...
I don't know if the Steelers have had a better third down back. Maybe Jaylen Warren. I mean, Mewelde Moore was a big part of the Super Bowl 43 team. Like
Lev Bell, could he be underrated? Statistically third best running back in Steeler history?
I mean, I guess, but like if you saw him play, you knew how great he was. But it's hard to underrate somebody that like sort of took themselves out of it.
I'll give this one Elsie Greenwood.
Yeah.
Not in the Hall.
Right.
So I guess you could say that he has been underrated, at least nationally by his peers. I
Certainly,
guess.
and I smile at Aaron Smith's name on this since he's been on like all-time underrated player lists for like a decade now.
I'm surprised every reply wasn't Aaron Smith.
Right. That's the easy one.
When they named him when they named him Hall of Honor, it was like underrated, so underrated, so underrated. Hall of Honor before Casey Hampton. So
Right.
who's more underrated?
Right.
What about this for? I'll give two answers for all-time underrated. This is a tough one. Now he only really 2 years of productivity, but I believe it was 2 All-Pro years. Yancey Thigpen.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of Cordell's issues. The issues people had with Cordell occurred once he was gone.
2 1,300-yard seasons, but that's
at a time when there wasn't it's not like it is today.
Not in Pittsburgh,
when Yancey
at
was
least.
doing that. Yes, that too.
So but only 2 seasons to call him most underrated all time. I don't know.
Right. Well, a lot of these guys are like missed opportunities. Like you could put Levon Kirkland on there too, but it just didn't work. Kendrell Bell, if he doesn't get the high ankle sprain,
I'll give one other name, and it's to be determined because he's currently on the roster. All-time underrated Deontay Johnson. Could you put him on this list?
I mean, they've already given him one contract extension, which makes it a little bit unlikely. I mean, it's interesting that both of your underrated guys were the go-to receivers for their teams at the time between Deontay and Yancey. It's hard for me to look at him as underrated now because the guy does drop a lot of passes, but I mean we've seen what this offense is like without him, and it's even less pretty.
Well, that's who gets my vote.
There you go.
Underrated, whatever. It's undefinable.
Right, exactly. It's something to boost this guy's Twitter account here.
Well, let's get something more definitive. At Saris_Candies.
Okay.
Saris Candies. Thursday night football debut. We've got JJ Watt in the luxury booth with his terrible towel and the package of Saris chocolate-covered pretzels.
Man, even when I was at my heaviest, I didn't eat chocolate-covered pretzels.
What?
Are they good? Are they good? I've heard they're delicious.
There's nothing better.
Okay. Because I love pretzels. That's the one thing that's my great vice. I still eat so many pretzels, but I just don't put chocolate on them.
It's better chocolate than Hershey. We've got Hershey's chocolate, of course, in Hershey's PA. But
certainly.
The milk chocolate from Saris is better. The mix with the pretzel, it's a good consistency. It's a thick pretzel.
Okay. I mean, I would assume this is a high-caliber snack for it to be in the luxury box at Thursday Night Football.
Have you never had a chocolate-covered
I mean,
pretzel?
I'm sure I had one somewhere along the way. Like when I was at my heaviest, I'm sure I did. But I didn't. It was never like, oh, this is the snack I got to seek out.
They're a gift from God.
Okay,
Brad.
okay. I've learned a lot tonight. You don't have to get me one, man. I appreciate that though.
They are a gift from God. He waited. He waited so long to give it to us. Why? We should have had those in the BC times. A little more love in this world.
And on the 5th day.
Definitely, dude. If you weren't making ice cream and chocolate-covered pretzels before you made a walrus, come on. Okay. Enough scripture talk.
There you go.
I guess that's what we've been talking about, has it? Is there anything else to say? Don't you want to... I know I got the...
That's what we've been talking about.
All that for that. 3-0 in the block numbers or whatever.
Okay.
Feeling good about that. 7-3.
I mean, but I mean, they're playing a defense that's got some players on it. They have a good running. This is a team that has a good running game and is going to commit to it as well. They're not going to be like this other teams. They're like, we're too smart to just keep running the ball at the Steelers.
That seems to be what these teams seem to lose their identity against us. I think of Baltimore and maybe.
I think even the Rams to an extent. No, I know they had those guys that hadn't played with them a while, but they were running the ball great. Then all of a sudden they're like, we'll just keep throwing to Puka, and then they lost the game.
And now Cam is back. We didn't even talk defense. We went this whole show without saying one thing about defense.
Well, that's not what they were talking about after this game.
They weren't. Why is that? I don't know. Because Cam's back?
Well, because the defense did okay, I think was sort of why.
Okay, this is it. This is the calm before the away stretch. Because then after this week, it's like 3 out of 5 away games.
On the road a lot.
Cincinnati, Cleveland. We'll never be home again. So, all right. If you want to keep the conversation going, like or leave a comment on YouTube. That would be helpful. I think YouTube is what people said that they weren't aware that there is a visual component.
Oh yeah, no, we take it. Yeah, I mean, we wear a different Pittsburgh shirt each time. Yeah.
Try to. I try to stuff myself into this shirt. I thought I was doing so good. I need to maybe step on a scale or something maybe once in a while.
Yesterday's a hard word.
Hard word for me. Very hard word for me. Keep the conversation going on social media. I'm on TikTok at Kyle Kreis. Greg, how about yourself?
Unfortunately, you can find me on Instagram at Greg Benevent, P as in boy, E-N-E, V as in Victor, E-N-T.
If you want a Blame Canada sticker, hit me up on email, kylekreis@gmail.com. I still have a couple outstanding to go. I know I promised that last week, but
okay.
Time slipped away. Time keeps on slipping into the future, as a poet once said. All right, enough caucus. Until next week, keep listening to your coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.